organization, governments use negotiation and consensus skills and strategies to advance their interests and improve working positive relationships. Until last week, I'm the former Deputy Secretary of Conflict Management for the Prime Minister Office in Peru. So I was working since the beginning of this year, managing all dialogue tables in the country and mainly dealing with mining and community issues. So these are some of the pictures of my work that I will not go into that, but one of the ones I like is this one, flying in Peruvian Air Force airplane with the Prime Minister going to some of these locations to facilitate some kind of dialogues in different type of settings. But we are going to talk about from conflict to a strategic alliance. And I will share with you this project that I work with, the Warintza project in Ecuador. I'm in Lima, Peru right now. That's where I grew up. And this is a story. And I will give you some little context. That's Ecuador, Peru, and down here is Chile. But we have a border between Ecuador and Peru. And we had conflict for many, many years in 41, 81, 95. And in 98, we reached an agreement, the Peruvian president, and the Ecuadorian president, we reached an agreement to build peace. And now we have a great relationship, neighbor relationship. So the area of the conflict between Peru and Ecuador was called the Cordillera del Condor, which the limits between Peru and Ecuador. And in this same area, you have a mining company that had a project called the Warintza project, which was in territory of Shuar and Warints community. Shuar is like an indigenous type of group culture. And you have many of this population along the border. And in 2004, Lowell Mineral Exploration, this Canadian mining company, reached an agreement with this community. And after a while, the relationship went down. And in 2006, it says, it will be remembered by the Shuar people, one of the original peoples of Ecuador, which kind of kick out this mining company from their territories. That was 2006. So from 2006 to 2017, we had like 11 years of conflict. And the mining company had the Latin American headquarters here in Lima. And a guy called me saying, hey, Luis, I have 10 indigenous leaders that are coming to Lima and they want to talk with the manager of the company and they want to get their lands back. Because this mining company purchases several spots, but they were confusing, or some were complaining about how the purchasing process went through. And they were saying, well, you need to give us our land back. So I did a little training with them one day, full day, and the next day I facilitate this conversation between the manager and the indigenous leaders that came to Lima. And at the end, we had a great conversation. We went deep to understand the interests of the community, and they were saying, we want to have our land back. And the company was saying, we cannot return the title. We cannot give you the land back, but we want to build a future together. So at the end of this conversation, they said, the community leader said, we want you to go back with us to Ecuador, to our land, to the indigenous region, and to the Amazon region in Peru, to talk with our community and explain the conversation we had here in Lima. So they invited me to go there. And that is in Ecuador. Same limits, same border between Peru and Ecuador. This is like a zoom in of the area. This is the titles or the properties that were purchased by the company. And this is where the One community is here and the next community is here. So they invite me to go the first week of December. I couldn't do it, and I said I'm going there the first week of January. So 2018, I went there. So I first arrival to this area. I don't know if you can see it, but that's the area. So that was my first arrival to this community, a beautiful community that you can not go driving. You need to arrive in an airplane, and it's in the middle of the jungle in the Amazon region of Ecuador. So I don't know if you can see this video, but
yep.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
So just to give you a sense of where I was coming from Lima to Ecuador, to Quito driving 8 hours, and then a little airplane for 40 minutes to arrive to that area. Yeah. So that's not a soft landing, but I did feel like Indiana Jones arriving to that area. So my purpose was to share the ideas of the training we had in Lima, the kind of conversation we had, and do some sort of informal stakeholder assessment in Yawi, that's the name of the community, to understand the grievances, their interests, the concerns, and to craft a proposal from the community to the company to see if some sort of agreement could be reached. So that was my first meeting with them. I have here a little picture of Sansa. So as you can see, I'm a bald guy. And they were so welcoming, and they said, Luis, it's great that you don't have hair because we are very popular because we shrink heads of our enemies. But we don't do this with bald people. You just need to have hair. But they were kind of nice people. So after having this dialogue, listening to this community, people were screaming, crying, sharing their grievances. They said, well, we want to have a prior consult process. We want our land back. 26 premises where 18 families live. We want to have a development, a plan for development in this community. And we also want a compensation for our community for the damages and suffering that the company caused, or this problem caused us. Because these people sold their land, and the communities from the surrounding areas, which are also indigenous groups, they were saying, how can you dare to sell your property? Because we, as a Shuar nation, we are kind of attached to the land. So if you get rid of the land, you don't deserve to live because you are not full Shuar anymore. So we may end up take your land and kill you all. So that was causing a stress in the community. So this conflict regarding land and property is not as simple as a give and take property or land, because it's part of this culture and it's part of your identity. To own land is kind of part of your identity. So they said, we want all this, go back to Lima, talk with the manager. I talked with the manager, I explained the manager the proposal of this community, and the manager said, okay, I need to send this back to Canada so the executives in Canada can review your proposal and see what can be done. So days later, he came and said, okay, we can have an open dialogue and we can even talk about the land issue. We can address all the issues that they were sharing. At the beginning of our conversation months ago was, we cannot give you our land, no way. Because this is kind of the assets that we can use to obtain money for our project or a future project. So we cannot get rid of that land. We cannot give the community, we cannot give the land back to the community. And But now they realize that, well, maybe we need to talk about, at least we need to talk about this. So let's have a dialogue process. So I went back the next month, February, I arrived again to this community to inform or to tell them Lowell's opinion, the company's opinion, and explain what I did with the manager. We talked and they said, okay, we can have a dialogue in a fair process, and we can even talk about the issue of the land. My purpose was also to keep understanding the community interest, concerns, hopes, aspirations, and get some better feelings of or what the community really needed, hope for, or want. And I also did a visioning exercise, and I asked them if there were not any conflict regarding this piece of land. And if you had a good relationship with the mining company, how would you like to see the future? How would you like to see your community in the future? So the funny thing is that I speak Spanish, I speak a little bit of English, but this community didn't speak full Spanish. So they speak Shuar. So I even had translators for these conversations. So we talk about the potential of having a dialogue process. They kept saying, we need our land back. Then we can start talking about a dialogue process to see a bright future with the community and the company. And here were this whiteboard with all the kind of topics that we were talking. And I said to them, one of the conditions, well, we need 3 conditions to have a constructive dialogue. We need to be aware that not everybody is going to be, is going to get everything that they want. Obviously, you need to be better than what you were before, but you cannot get everything you want. You need to talk and decide if you really need each other. Can you be better off or reaching goals with the help of the company that you as a community cannot do it by yourself? And both company and community needs to realize that not everyone knows everything. So there are some information that needs to be developed together or gathered together. So this was a visioning exercise with the community. The results were issues regarding to health, to education, infrastructure, housing, energy, internet, roads, and industrializing some of the local products. So after having this long process, this conversation for 3 days, at the end they said, okay, let's have a new proposal for the company. We want to develop, we want a plan for development for the community. We want to present a project for developing the mining project, exploration and exploitation. We want to have more information about this process. We may give a permission or grant a permission to do exploration for 7 years, have prior consultation process, all these beautiful things. And they said, you as a facilitator, you as a mediator, to me, you should take this proposal to the company, and then you have to return in March and bring the comments and responses after the company can evaluate this proposal that we are giving to them. But they said, before we do all this, the company needs to give us our land back, and then we can start talking. And then I understood that giving or obtaining the land back from the company, it was a sign of healing the relationship. So first we need to heal the wounds that we have due to this conflict, and then we can start talking about progress and development and your mining project. So during this visit, I also, in Ecuador, I visited the government of Ecuador. And this was left-wing government. And they said some stuff like, we are never going to do mining on the people's back. So there's a problem with mining companies. You have not shared information. You are not having great practices or engaging practices. But we are going to support good environmental and development standards if you as a company wants to come here and do your work. So with that in mind, I then in March 2018, I went to Canada because they were having this PDAC, a big conference they have for prospect and developers in mining in Canada. So I went there because one, I wanted to talk with the executives from the mining company, and then also I wanted to know some of the businesses and entrepreneurship that the indigenous groups or the native people, First Nations in Canada have. So I went there, I met some of the executives in Canada, I met some of the Ecuadorians, having some drinks with the Shuar leaders, with the ambassador and other executives in this conference. I learned about a mining company and indigenous group or community in Ecuador, in another province. Then I had conversations with the ambassador. Then I met with the executive from Lowell in Canada. My purpose was to understand their interest, explain the current situation and the interest of the community, because I was not sure if they really knew about what was going on. I also wanted to know the decision-making process of the company. So how can they make decisions if it's possible, or what needs to happen in order to give that land back to the community? Is it possible to do that or not? The community explained, the company explained the process. So I had a better sense of the interest of the community, what we want to recover our lands, and we want to achieve development and the well-being of our population. So from the conversation with the company, the Lowell company, the interests were, we want to do exploration, construction, and exploitation of this mining project with high standards of social, environmental, and technical standards. This interest was in alignment, or were in alignment with the government of Ecuador. They also wanted to learn more about the concerns of the community, and they wanted to get involved other kind of federations and other organizations that gathers more communities in Ecuador. And that's one called PESHA, is P-S-H-A, and the CONAIE, which is a national organization. And Lowell also wanted to contribute to the development of the community and Yawi and Warints, because I mentioned earlier that were two communities next to each other. So they wanted to help this community to grow and develop. And that was also a connecting interest with the community. So this was March. And then considering both parties' interest, I said, well, we can go back to the community, explain this conversation that we're having, and start having, maybe craft another proposal that the company can propose, or invite the general manager and one of the executives from Canada to come to Ecuador, learn more information firsthand about the reality, how they live, how they feel, what they care about, so they can persuade the board of directors from the company that it might be a good way to go if the company give that land back, because it's nonsense to own this property if you cannot go and do the project, because all the minerals is underground, but you cannot get in to the community. So it's not worth it to have a piece of land that you cannot use it for anything, and you cannot go even to do the project you want. So the community could also propose to Lowell to engage in the dialogue to these organizations, the ones I mentioned, PESHA and CONAIE. And it was also an interest of Lowell. And the community could offer an agreement for returning the lands, for getting the lands back in exchange for granting these exploration permissions with a monthly payment. And these other ideas that we said, well, we can try to start crafting some, if you understand the interest, you can come up with some creative ideas to put together some sort of agreement. So that was my purpose, going back to Ecuador and explain this to the community. So I flew from Lima to Ecuador, Quito, took the truck, we went to the little airport, and I ran into this guy. This guy is the president of PESHA, and he said, oh, so you're the mediator. I heard a lot about you, but you know what? You are not allowed to get into my communities. So this is a big organization that manage all these little communities, right? And said, okay, so I had to make a choice. Should I enter or not? The local community was waiting for me, but this guy, kind of the chief, said, you cannot get in because you did not ask for my permission. So having some cultural awareness and trusting that the community will understand this difficult moment, I said to this guy, I respect your authority, your hierarchical position, and actually I just came back from Canada. I wanted to share some information with the community, and the company wants to engage you, and the community also wants to engage you in this dialogue, this potential dialogue. We want to start having some shared understanding of the situation. And he was like, okay, very serious, but at least we got a picture. So back to Lima. And then I shared what happened with the community, with the company, and the company said, well, we need to send our guy from Canada to Ecuador, at least to meet the people from the company. They appointed this country director. And in addition, we went back and forth. We had informal conversations with this leader, from the guy from the prior picture. And I asked them, can we set up a meeting? I want you meet the chief that came from Canada to talk about this situation, their interests, what they want to do. And he said, okay, let's have a meeting. We went to a restaurant. We had a long conversation, kind of asked for permission. Hey, what if we go there and we want to meet this community? So the company wanted to touch base, learn more about this community, and I thought was a sincere interest to know what was going on the ground. So they accepted, and Lowell representative, he went with another representative from the PESHA, and we went to Warints, to this community, to explain how the company thinks, how the company make decisions, what would need to happen in order for a company to get rid of this asset or these properties. And he wanted also to learn how the community make decisions and trying to do some comparison about decision-making process between the community and the company. A month later, having back and forth conversations, we reached an agreement to start a dialogue process. And this was a formalizing, the moment in which we formalized this dialogue process. And then we define a roadmap. We are going to have a high commission that will meet once a month to talk about these conversations, to talk about these issues. We select some representatives. We define another group of coordinators, and we were going to have a next meeting to define an agenda for this process, including the title, the properties issues. So that happened in a city not in the community. But then we need to go to the community to explain. This was the executive of the company, this was the leader of the PESA, this bigger organization, and we went to this assembly to explain that we were going to start a dialogue process in order to talk about many issues, in which the first one was give us our land back, right? So we start having a kind of joint fact-finding process to figure out how could the company give the land back to the community, because it was not easy. The community wanted to expand their ancestral land, but if you already sold your piece of land, this can now go back to be an ancestral land because now it's in the market. So there was a legal conversation and confusion. How can they obtain the land back? So the community and the company went together to the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock to figure out what to do with this piece of land. So at the same time, the company started promoting the idea of doing this census to understand the needs and concerns or the real needs of the community. So foreseeing the future, thinking, if we want to help this community, first we need to know what they really need. So we went back to the community to explain what was done in this visit to Quito, talking with the Minister of Agriculture and Livestock, to explain what we discovered together about what can be done with the land. So the company at that time said, if the company decides to give this land back, the land needs to be given to an entity that is a formal entity. I mentioned that there were two communities, but these two communities were one in the past. So one little one separated from the bigger community. And the ones who left were the guys who gave their land. They gave away their land or they sold their land. And the tricky thing was the government said, okay, you can give the money, the land, the property back to the community, but not to the guys who sold the land. You need to give the land to the larger community because they are official, registered, and so they are official. And the company is to ask, if I give you the land back, I will need to give it to this community, to a larger community. And you are not, you don't have great, good relationships, but that's the way to go. And they said, okay, we accept it. So later, next month, we went to the office of the PESA, and the company gave a letter confirming its decision to transfer the ownership of this land to the community. So they were starting being happy. At the same time, the company needs to do some kind of paperwork, legal work, and the National Water Authority, the Ministry of Environmental Issues need to go to the community and identify if the company was doing some kind of work or not. But because we start a process of engaging community in any type of action or decisions, we told the government, if you go, you do the work, but you need to explain to the community what the thing that you are doing. So later, we met with the leaders again in this commission, and we explained that there was a problem with the titles and how the titles were registered at the local level and at the national level, two different records, municipal records and the national records. And some measurements of the land were in conflict. So they explained that we need to fix this in order to proceed with the donation process. And in the same meeting, we started explaining about the Aboriginal Economic Development Corporations of Canada. So the communities can also learn how they can see a brighter future, if you want. And also, a conversation started regarding the possibility to engage the Ministry of Mining in this ceremony to give the land back. So then we went to Quito to talk about this kind of formalizing or ratifying to the community and the leaders in Quito that the company was going to give the land back. And then we also talked with the government, and the government, we invited the government to the community to say, hey, we're going to give this land back. So we want to have the government as an observer kind of guarantee of that what we are doing the right thing here. At the same time, we were continue identifying the interests or the needs and the problems of the community to work on this development plan for the community. It was very participatory, and then we had we prioritized the needs, and there were needs regarding to infrastructure, education, safety, water, sanitation, and other stuff. Of course, this presentation will be available for you. And then we met with the Ministry of Mining in Ecuador, with the community, to explain this process that this dialogue process. And we said we want to be the first project that in Ecuador, there's no prior consultation process for mining, just for oil. And this company and the community said, we want to be the first case so you can use us as an example. In November 2018, the donation was the land was given back to the community with no conditions. So it was not, okay, I will give you the land back, but you will allow me to do the exploration work. It's just the company decided to give the land back to start building some trust, and the community happily accepted. So even we had a very ceremonial, the declaration of Warintza and the victory of dialogue. And then Christmas Eve, that was November, and Christmas Eve, the company presented a proposal of a memorandum of understanding to the communities so they can think about it and have a next meeting and talk about this. And in 2018, January, they start talking about this potential agreement. And in January 2018, the company was invited to the community and they signed an agreement, a memorandum of understanding, to do some joint study of the subsoil, the underground, to identify the potential of mineral. And then I will tell you a little bit of one of the key lessons learned about even the word choice that we use in this process. So then a month later, the PECHA decided to support this agreement, this memorandum of understanding, and they were going to be kind of witness of the process. So an agreement was reached between the company and the community, in which PECHA and the Ecuadorian government were the warranties, and the agreement was to do a joint exploration, and the community was going to have some benefits. The community was going to have a consulting, like an advisory board, a consultation, a monitoring committee to supervise not only the good relations, but also that there's no environmental impact in the community by the kind of work that the company was doing. The company was going to present some development funds. They were going to be hiring people, and the company designed with the community a training program during this exploration process, which is study of the subsoil. So in February, the training for 40 people started, and they start working in different things. For instance, a connection road between these two local communities. One of the things that was important in this project or in this agreement is that it empowers the community, because the community, if they wanted to suspend the effects of this memorandum of understanding. And the community and the company was not going to do any major activities like drilling without authorization from the government, or yeah. So that was 2018, 19, I'm close to finish. 2020, they came to Peru to explain their experience with this dialogue process and how they were going from conflict to this strategic alliance. And they were having meetings with different organizations dealing with mining and with mediators, dialogue groups. They also participate in a program that we developed called From Fear to Value in Mining with other colleagues. And they were exposed to some replica of a mine and to learn more about mining project. And in early 2020, the first drilling machine arrived to the community. There was another group of Ecuadorian indigenous leaders coming to Lima. And in May, March, they went to PDAC, to the same conference that I went 2 years ago in Toronto, Canada. So the advisory board of the Warintza project went to this area, or to this event. And they had an opportunity also to share their experience with the Ministry of Mines of British Columbia in Canada, and with the Tahltan Nation, which is an Aboriginal group in Canada. So they learn about the economic development corporations of Canada, so they kind of see what a future could look like if they work together with the mining company. And then they start working with the project and start doing all this exploration stuff. They did drilling, they learned to review the result of the drilling, and they have now they have a good relationship. They are doing very well. Now, and this is happening through COVID time. So in September 2020, two organizations, two NGOs start saying, oh, this Canadian mining company is manipulating these local communities. And the local community had to speak up and say, hey, please don't speak for us. We're happy. This is our free self-determination, according to ILO, the Convention 169. We have rights, and we are deciding what we want to do with the community and the company. So this story is briefly the beginning, sharing this publication in Spanish, and you can access it if you want. So just to finish, 9 lessons learned from this project. Word choice. We talk about study and investigation of subsoil of the community to determine the potential of minerals, instead of just talking about exploration. So this mining company, sell themselves or portray themselves as service providers to help communities to obtain credible and reliable information so they can make informed decisions about their own territories and projects. So it was clear and transparent that they were doing it together. So listening is the first step to build trust, genuine listening to understand the perspective of others. Taking the risk to trust the other one, make it easier for the other to trust one. this approach of mutual gains and consensus building is open to different cultures. I mean, goes beyond culture because everybody has interest, and we just need to take care of understanding each other's concerns. And a key to generate the right conditions to start a dialogue process is our capacity to connect with the other one as an individuals, as human beings. And credibility is built little by little, fulfilling your promises, your compromises, and the strategic design of the process and the stakeholder active participation gets the buy-in of many people involved. And this is obviously understood by everybody here that using a mediator or a third party neutral creates good conditions to have a deep, open, and honest conversation. And at the end, this could have not been possible if the executives of the company were not committed with a genuine dialogue process, because you need to share control and power in order to have a constructive conversation. Just to finish, this is one of my favorite quotes, because Peter Drucker, one of the fathers of management, says that the culture eats strategy for breakfast. And in my world, that means that it's useless to have the right tools and processes, meaning strategy, if we have the wrong paradigm, if we have the wrong culture. So let's try and think of mutual gains. That's it. That's what I have to share. And I'm sorry for using more of my time. Thank you.